Good evening. We are convening the regular board meeting of Carpinteria Unified School District for March 11th, 2025. Can everybody please rise for the flag salute? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will begin with our closed session report. We had conference with labor negotiators. Information was exchanged. No action was taken. We are going to now move to public comment for items not on today's agenda. So if you would like to address something that is not listed within today's agenda, now is your time. Please step up to the podium and you may begin. Thank you. And please make sure the green light is on. It'll be bright.
Oh, even more bright.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Jessica Petrillo, and I am here to speak to you as a family school parent. CFS families want to remind the board how important it is to maintain family school. We understand the budget challenges you're facing, but we urge you to avoid drastic, short-sighted decisions that could permanently impact this unique and valuable program. We know one proposal is to move the GATE teacher to a 3-4 class at Canalino. Instead, we ask the board to consider a no-cost alternative, having that position lead a 2-3 class instead at family school, maintaining school choice and offering the 4th grade students an option to distribute across Canalino or family school. This would help sustain enrollment and strengthen future pathways into family school. We've heard concerns about low demand, but many families simply do not know about the program or how to register. Keeping the 2-3 class will help rebuild interest and allow time to create a stronger pipeline. Thank you for your time for considering solutions to preserve this important community program.
Thank you.
Good evening. My time? No? Okay. Good evening. My name is Chris Mastrovito, 8th grade science teacher at Carp Middle and cause secretary. I've met many of you before, all of you before. I've spoken before. I've been up here on this podium, so you know who I am. I want to start by saying first that I was very happy to have the opportunity to work in this district. I'm grateful. Thank you. I really am. And my friends and family said, you hit the jackpot. It's a beautiful beach community, supportive parents. You know, this is a great place to be. And I wasn't disappointed. I felt right at home. So this is going on my 5th year here, which is long enough that I'm established, but short enough to still be absolutely baffled by some of the things that I'm seeing here. So I come here with questions, the most important of which being maybe naively, the same question I've been asking for 4 years when I first heard about the dysfunction between the union and district. Which is, what in the world is going on here? A total communication breakdown, canceled meetings, the hostility and distrust, the legal battles, and the worst, which I keep hearing, is people fearing retaliation for speaking here. And, you know, I know many have had to face their fears to come up here. This is scary to come up here and speak to you guys. And I know some people here that are here regularly have no fear whatsoever. And I support Mr. Hotchner. Yes, he's passionate. It's confrontational at times. But look, we have to confront real problems, and our members all agree that we cannot and will not stop asking you hard questions. When I got involved with the union, it wasn't to annoy all of you, I promise. It was, you know, we want to fulfill our promise to the students in peace. It was because of my belief in how vital organized labor is to social justice, stemming from my political science background. But I've worked in 3 other districts, and I've never seen anything like this. So I came in thinking I could help. So I listened, I became interested. I designed and hand drew a new seal that, you know, reflected our mission and purpose. And if you look, all these little people are linked up side by side to embrace and support these kids, these students. And these hands are clasped in agreement around a shared vision. And there's us and there's you, hopefully. And I really believe this. And now after 4 years here, I'm struggling with this possibility that, again, am I naive? Is this not possible? Does this board really think that we are asking too much? Why do union proposals go unacknowledged, like the proposals from February 28th? Why does it seem like the board prefers to prolong conflict by making offers that you know we cannot accept? I keep hearing money is tight, the formulas are very complex, but are they so tight or so complex that we cannot meet or exceed the mandated minimum toward employee wages? We say pay reflects priorities. There's got to be something we can do to offer good wages and retain skilled teachers without capping or cutting healthcare. There's got to be a way to end the legal battles. There's got to be a way to end the impasse around a fair contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in regards to the potential elimination of the gate department. Tonight, I will be focusing my comments on the Aliso and Canalino populations, which make up nearly 90% of our elementary population overall and 62% of the gate population. Last month, I learned from the most recent SARCs that 62% of Aliso students did not meet math standards, which is just about the state average, and 80% of Aliso students did not meet science standards, which is below the state average of 70%. Canalino students just about meet the state average in math, which is again about 70% of students not meeting science standards as well. Only 10% of our elementary students attend schools where students consistently meet or exceed state averages in math and science. 75% of what I teach in GATE is science and math, and these include field trips, student-led interviews with local field professionals, and building multiple hands-on models. These field trips and interviews are at low or no cost to the district, and when interviewees visit the campus and when they do ask for payment, that comes out of my pocket. With our science and math scores being what they are, it does not make sense to take away GATE. Students need more, not fewer, opportunities for scientific and mathematical exploration and mastery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so employee union leadership wants to provide the community with an update on our current contract bargaining impasse. The union has received notification from California Public Employment Relations Board, PERB, that the 23-24 negotiations, now 21 months ongoing, have been directed to fact-finding. Employees are disappointed that the district did not take the now 7-month mediation process any more seriously than it took the first 14 months of the negotiation process. In the fact-finding process, an impartial expert is selected by either party or by PERB to determine the facts in the dispute. The fact finder is authorized to evaluate the matter and file a report establishing the facts. The fact finder is authorized to issue a substantive recommendation as to how the dispute might be resolved, and the district may or may not, if they wish, reject the fact finder's recommendation. If the recommendation is accepted, an agreement is reached between the parties, and if the fact finder's decision is not accepted, the district may impose its will on contract provisions still under negotiation, in this case salary increases, as well as components of both the safety and leave articles. Employees may then determine how to best respond if the district rejects the fact finder's recommendation, including and up to engaging in a strike. And although a strike is the very last thing employees want to be involved with, they may be compelled to participate in such actions based on the district's unwillingness to reach a fair agreement. Employees want to avoid any future interruption to the teaching and learning environment, to our students, their families, and the community. However, we recognize that we are only half of the bargaining partnership. Moving forward, although the mediation process or phase was confidential, where union leadership was not permitted to share the district's proposals, the fact-finding process is not, and nothing prohibits either party from continuing to settle the outstanding impasse. CAUS recently sent the district 2 new proposals and shared those with the public. One asked for less of a salary increase than the district's last best offer, and also attempts to resolve the current 24-25 school year negotiations. The other proposal asked for much less than the district's last best offer, as long as a contingency is in place to equitably split any property tax revenues that come in higher than the district's current projections. With a contingency in place, the parties needn't rely on trust that doesn't exist. Instead, the parties would agree to share the benefit of any additional unprojected revenues, as well as share the pain associated with the absence of additional revenues. Imagine employees and admin rowing in the same direction, avoiding future conflict by establishing fair and equitable financial expectations. Imagine that. Thank you.
This is Jay's translation. El sindicato ha recibido aviso de la Dirección de Empleos Públicos que las negociaciones laborales de 21 meses han pasado a investigación de hechos. El sindicato no puede creer que no se haya tomado en cuenta la mediación. ¿Qué es la investigación de hechos? El investigador determina los hechos que causan el problema y hace una recomendación cómo solucionar este problema. El distrito puede aceptar o no. Si no acepta, puede imponer su voluntad. Pero esto llevaría a una huelga, algo que los empleados no desean, pero se irían a la huelga ante la indiferencia del distrito. Para evitar la huelga, el sindicato envió al distrito 2 ofertas compartidas con el público, un poco más bajas que las ofertas del distrito, pero con la contingencia de que se reparta el exceso de impuesto de propiedad cuando exceda las proyecciones del distrito. Imagínense a los empleados del distrito y los oficiales del distrito remando juntos. Okay, that's the end. Now I would like to make my own comment. Voy a empezar hablando en español, porque amerita esto hablar en español primero y después voy a traducir. Hace un mes y medio, a nivel nacional, incluso a nivel local, se notó que había mucho miedo por parte de migrantes mexicanos, hispanos, de cualquier lugar, de cualquier país, por las redadas de los agentes de migración. Yo soy migrante. Mis padres fueron migrantes. Soy ciudadano naturalizado de Estados Unidos, pero está ahí ese miedo que yo siento de las personas migrantes. Quizás ustedes no, porque ustedes no son migrantes. Pensé, tengo que hacer llegar mi voz a lo más alto. Platiqué con muchas familias y ya en confianza, armado de valor, hice una presentación ante el gobierno de la ciudad, ahí donde están ustedes sentados, y expuse lo mismo. Miedo de la gente de salir a lugares, a hospitales, a clínicas. Incluso una persona hasta me dijo: Rogelio, ¿me puedes girar este dinero para mi familia en México? ¿Por qué? No, porque yo tengo miedo de ir. Hasta ese es el miedo extremo. Goleta, los distritos escolares de Goleta, de Santa Bárbara, reportaron un 19% de falta de asistencia de estudiantes. 19% en Goleta, 16% en Santa Bárbara. Aquí en Carpinteria yo no lo sé porque nunca escuché datos al respecto. Eso le hice saber a los consejos, al Consejo de Gobierno, y les dije: esto tiene que cambiar. Porque en el 2017 Fred Shaw se quedó y vamos a esperar, vamos a ver qué pasa. Y pues se quedó esperando años, porque no hizo nada en aquel tiempo. Y yo hablo 2017. ayer en la Junta del Gobierno.
So
Yeah.
your time for, you can do your translation
Okay.
time as well,
All right.
but your time for the comment has finished. So now you get the time to
translation.
translate.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Some month and a half ago, noticed fear on the Hispanic community. Fear of being arrested, detained, deported. And that's normal. But that's fear that only Hispanics can feel. Probably you don't, because you're not in danger. You're not migrants. But Carpinteria is a migrant community. Not only undocumented people, but a lot of citizens, U.S. citizens, including me. So I said, well, I talked to families, and they said, okay, you can go out to city council and speak for us, which I did. Let them know about this huge fear. And so, well, things have changed. Now we have a Hispanic mayor. We have a Hispanic vice mayor. We have Michael Ramirez. We have a council member, Nomura, completely bilingual. So we don't know when, but we'll make a presentation about it. We don't know because of the implications. And last night, the city attorney made a presentation called the California Values Act. What is that? It's also known as the California Sanctuary State Law. And what does it do? Protects, I'm quoting, it prohibits law enforcement from investigating, detaining, or arresting people for immigration enforcement. It prohibits law enforcement from sharing personal information with ICE. It limits immigration enforcement at public schools, hospitals, and courthouses. And what are the rights under SB 54, which is the California Values Act? You have the right to remain silent, and you shouldn't discuss your immigration status with ICE. So yesterday they approved it. Now migrants are protected. I know that the superintendent had done it. Father Martini had done it through St. Joseph Church. But I told him we need the protection from the government.
Thank
and they
you.
did last night.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to just say that I love Carpinteria, I love our kids, and I want the best for all the kids, especially my two who are going into high school next year. I want the best teachers, I want the best education, I want them to go to college, wherever they want, and grow up to be whatever kind of leader this country needs. But we can't do that without good teachers. We cannot keep good teachers if they're afraid to come and speak, if they're not being paid a wage where they can drive from Ventura and spend probably $200 to $300 a month on gas back and forth, because that's what I spend going south. And they have to have benefits so that we can be healthy when we get the flu. Call for a substitute. We all want the best for our kids in this community, especially the teachers who spend, 6 to 10 hours a day with your children, my children. They're not in it to make $1 million. They're in it to educate for the future, and it's a calling. But as professionals, we can't come to work and badmouth anything going on. We come in, we show up early, we stay late, we take papers home, we grade at nighttime after we've cooked dinner. And yet, what I'm hearing from several people is that The professional attitude is not being reciprocated. People are scared to come and speak. Meetings are not being held. Emails are not being answered in a timely manner. In what business would this be okay? You would fail. So I urge this board, you have a job to do, and it's a hard one, and I don't want your job. But you've got to think outside the box. You've got to communicate with your union. Jay is a lot, but he's on top of everything that needs to be done. You've got teachers in the back with years, over 30 years of experience, who could probably offer even more solutions. Have you gone to them to say, what could you do? But you have to offer. If we want the best, we have to pay for the best to keep the best here. And these lawsuits that are shelling out $20,000 at a time to pay guys who don't care about us, they want money. We don't need lawyers in our classrooms. You guys should be in the classroom seeing the amazing work they're doing at the high schools, at junior highs, and the primaries. Parents in this community work one-to-one with their teachers. If they need something, we bring it to school the next day. Gift cards, crayons. We go above and beyond for our teachers. You know that as parents, you do that. Reciprocation time. You've got to pay for the best. We want to keep the best here. I want the best for my own children. I know you guys do too. So let's figure out a way to work together, whether it's bringing in other professionals. You can stop the mitigation, I forgot what it was called, litigation, by just offering a good wage. Thank you.
Any further public comment for items not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we are going to move on to C4, approval of the minutes. We will take public comment on approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 25th, 2025. If you would like to comment on approval of the minutes from February 25th, please step up to the podium now. Thank you.
Thank you. So during the February 25th board meeting, the 24-25 LCAP was presented. The LCAP clearly showed that CUSD's internal achievement metrics, such as student grades, GPAs, and STAR tests, do not align with the external metrics used to measure student achievement, such as CASP scores, A through G requirements, college acceptance rates, etc. Grade inflation pushed both directly and indirectly by our superintendent is real. It is neither serving student competitiveness beyond CUSD, nor is it helping families acquire an accurate sense of their kids' academic abilities. The results of the California Healthy Kids Survey were also discussed, and when the data could be used to support administrative performance, we were told it was reliable. And then when the data demonstrated concerning trends, especially in regard to district safety, we were told it was unreliable. At minute 133, Mr. Schaefer asked how many people are responding to the survey. And Ms. Rigby confirmed, quote, "It's a small percentage, but it's the same every year, so it's nothing new." Let the minutes show that Ms. Rigby knew the pool of respondents is consistently too small to draw any serious conclusions on the data, but she did not volunteer that information. At hour 1:43:30, Board Member Green again blamed COVID for low achievement data in the present. When, Ms. Green, will you focus on the actual causes of low achievement instead of recycling increasingly irrelevant excuses for student deficiencies? Even Ms. Rigby admitted, quote, "At this time, we should be showing increases." At hour 1:28:13, Andy Schaefer blamed the decision of a talented and dedicated teacher, Salvador Lopez, for the poor CTE numbers in the LCAP. It was not Mr. Lopez's fault that he resigned and left the district due to poor compensation values and being unable to live and work locally. But disregarding all of that, Mr. Schaefer wasn't even looking at the correct year, which, thank you, you pointed out, Ms. Diamond, when he publicly announced his ridiculous conclusion. So union leadership corrects the record that Mr. Schaefer failed to correct himself. Let the minutes show that Ms. Rigby also chose to publicly blame teachers at hour 1:41:48, claiming that poor student achievement is, quote, "absolutely reflective of the instruction in the particular classroom." Ms. Rigby dismisses the impact of cutting student-centered resources, of removing valuable programs like GATE, possibly Carpinteria Family School, of the failure to attract and keep educators and support staff, or the almost cultishly uninformed decision-making process by the school board. To Ms. Rigby, poor student achievement is absolutely reflective of the instruction in the particular classroom. Blame the teacher, right? When Ms. Rigby claimed admin's solutions to low achievement are paying off, suggesting that this is demonstrated in math and language arts scores of our SPED students, even
you. Your
Ms.
time is up.
Diamond called her on that ridiculous
Your
conclusion.
time is up.
Thank you.
Any further public comment on approval of the minutes from February 25th?
Yeah, this is Jay's translation. La aprobación de los minutos. La LCAP mostró que la métrica interna de los logros estudiantiles no se alinean con la métrica externa para medir los logros académicos. Inflación de calificaciones. Las inflaciones de la superintendente es real. Esto no ayuda a las familias para entender las habilidades académicas de los hijos. Que los minutos muestren que la superintendente decidió inculpar a los maestros del desempeño académico de los estudiantes. Ella falla en no señalar el impacto de quitar programas como GATE o el no poder reclutar a maestros con talento. Que los minutos muestren cómo se han quitado los comentarios de los maestros y ahora los culpan de resultados académicos. Thank you.
Okay. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 25th.
I'll second that motion.
No, I need the first. I'm entertaining a
sorry.
motion.
I move to approve the minutes of February 25th.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to take public comment on C5, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. If you would like to comment on C5, please step up to the podium at this time.
Okay, so the consent agenda, as with the rest of the board meeting, is governed by the Brown Act. The Brown Act is designed to prevent the advancement of public business without transparency. It is designed to provide members of the community an opportunity to more thoroughly consider the details associated with matters of district business before those matters are quickly processed through the consent agenda en masse. When consent agenda items are not brought before the public at previous board meetings, the practice obscures debate and it prevents dissenting viewpoints and concerns from being placed on the public record. Now, this evening's consent agenda is fairly innocuous, like last week or last board meeting. It does not contain any significant monetary investments in highly questionable and concerning items. But make no mistake, CUSD's consent agendas often do contain such items. And the continued misuse of the consent agenda process is intended to grease the wheels for when the consent agenda contains less innocuous items that district officials would prefer not to receive the full measure of scrutiny they deserve. For example, the frequent changes in contracts with custodial suppliers, which require the purchase of brand new brand-specific products, which we have already in the warehouse that is full of cleaning supplies, paper towels, dispensers, hygiene-related appliances, or the many thousands of dollars of custodial resources associated with the last contract, which are now quietly being thrown away. Or how about the hundreds of thousands of dollars rammed through recent consent agendas to replace the service of permanent employees with contractors? Services purchased at extraordinary hourly rates, in part because our administrative culture of violation has driven away many talented employees, but also in part because district leadership would prefer a workforce that does not have access to either contractual rights in the bargaining agreements or access to the legally protected representation that competent and trusted employee union representatives can provide. Now, setting aside our procedural concerns pertaining to the consent agenda, employees strongly support several items contained in this evening's agenda, including field trip request to the Marine Science Program at the Maritime Museum, which is currently slated to be cut next year as a result of CUSD's mismanagement of its robust basic aid revenues. Or the field trip to Magic Mountain for 8th graders, which has already been cut and is only available if it is funded by less than transparent organizations like La Centra Summerlin Foundation. Or the field trip request for FFA to attend the annual State Leadership Convention in Sacramento, which already relies on grant monies to fund it as a result, again, of CUSD's mismanagement of its robust basic aid revenues. But again, don't think for a minute that employee support for any specific item should suggest we support the manner by which CUSD processes the consent agenda, which often equates to Brown Act violations. Thank you.
Any further public comment on approval of the agenda or consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, may I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Okay. This is a roll call, so I will take it. Eric?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
And I am aye. Okay, moving on to E, public interest reports and presentations. If you would like to make public comment on anything under the E category, please come to the podium now and you can make your comments. If you'd like to make a comment for anything under E, public interest reports and presentations. Okay, seeing none, we will begin with our student representative report.
Hello, thank you for having me here. I'm Angel Pineda, a Carpinteria High School senior, and I'm this year's student representative representing Carpinteria High School. This year's student report of March 11, 2025 has the following. The Western Associations of School and Colleges, WAS, accreditation team is currently conducting its visits to Carpinteria High School. They have been engaged in comprehensive evaluations, including classroom observations, meetings with faculty, parents, and students. The team will conclude their visit tomorrow afternoon. In other exciting news, I'm thrilled to announce the outstanding achievements of our CHS and CMS teams at the Mesa Day competition held at UC Santa Barbara this past Saturday, March 8th. We are particularly proud of Crystal Echeverria in 11th grade and Valeria Zamora in 12th grade, who earned first place in the biology breakthrough competition. Their successes qualify them to advance at the regional level of competition. Carpinteria FFA students are currently receiving their project animals. All animal projects will be by the end of campus in the end of April. Students will be preparing until early August to demonstrate their skills in showmanship. Seniors are currently receiving college admission offers, and they will be making a commitment to their colleges of choice by early May. Congratulations to all seniors who applied and are also getting into colleges/universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel, for your report. Any questions or comments for Angel?
No, I'd like to publicly announce that Angel has received a number of acceptances, and so Angel, we are so proud of you. Really like to recognize all your hard work and all those college acceptances. Now, the next step is your difficult choice, which school to attend, but I know you'll make the right choice for yourself and your family. So congratulations.
Congratulations, Angel. And so you had, last time you talked about you were having interviews for FFA, is it Congress or FFA, the state board?
Yes, I was in the running for the state officer position for California FFA, which I didn't move on, but 4 people out of this area from LA to San Jose did move on to the next level, which are my teammates and friends, and I fully support them and their next competitions and in-person interviews that they have on April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in April.
Well, congratulations for applying and for going through with it. And it is a huge task, and we're just really proud of you for putting yourself out there, and we believe in you. So congratulations. Thank you so much. Okay, and moving on to our superintendent's report.
I'd like to begin with appreciation, and tonight I'd like to recognize the district's leadership team. Jason Caff, who's right here, Jacqueline Lopez, Monica Thomas, Mari Hornback, Aaron LaPlante, Gerardo Corneo, Jamie Pursoon, Brett Weiberg, Luis Quintero, Carolyn Haynes, James Anderson, Kirsten Newman, and Jeremiah Sabenis. We appreciate all of their outstanding leadership and tireless work in supporting teachers, staff, students, and families this school year. My next item is our Carpinteria Teachers of the Year. On April 26th, the Carpinteria Community Association Awards Banquet will honor two outstanding CUSD teachers, Elizabeth Poulin, who's a CMS science teacher, and Renee Morellis, who teaches first grade at Aliso. He's our DLI teacher. So congratulations to our teachers. My next item is related to our elementary parent conferences this spring. Parent conferences will be held during March 17th through the 21st. We'll have minimum days, and working with our families to support student learning is a professional expectation and standard for all CUSD teachers. Effective teachers develop strong partnerships with families to ensure student engagement and support. These spring parent conferences provide the opportunity for parents to learn more about their students' progress in achieving grade level standards by June in preparation for their next grade level. Teachers provide many strategies for parents to help their students at home. Good nutrition, sleeping habits, limited screen time, and nightly reading for 30 minutes are also reinforced. CMS after-school programs. More than 150 CMS students participate in a variety of after-school programs. We offer tutoring, fishing, skateboarding, soccer and volleyball, teens love cooking, a math Super Bowl, theater club, glee club, and environmental club. Grants from the state, La Centra Summerlin, and Westerly Orchids fund these wonderful opportunities. We also have another opportunity for students and families during spring break. CUSD is partnering with United Way of Santa Barbara County to offer the Spring 2025 Bridge the Break program for elementary students. This program is free. It's week-long initiative designed to provide a unique blend of academic enrichment and recreational activities during the upcoming spring break. Bridge the Break will take place March 24th through the 28th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Canalino School with breakfast, lunch, and snacks provided. Students in grades TK to 5 will participate in literacy, math, STEAM, and recreation in an engaging learning environment. My next item refers to a summer program for high school students at SBCC. Incoming ninth grade students are invited to participate in this year's Summer Bridge program that will feature career technical education, culinary arts at Santa Barbara City College, and that will be June 23rd to the 27th, 8 to 4. SBCC will accommodate up to 30 students who will concurrently be enrolled in SBCC's PD 115 course, and bus transportation will be provided from the high school daily. Both a high school and middle school will host a parent-student meeting this month for those interested in participating, and grant funds are funding this program. We have another summer program that's offered to our middle school students. It's the CHS Engineering and Robotics teachers are offering a week-long project-based program in engineering and robotics for CMS 7th and 8th grade students during June. It's June 16th through the 20th. Funded by the K-16 grant, 20 students will participate in engineering design and a robotics competition. And then we are congratulating our Food Services Director, Michelle Hernandez. CUSD Food Services Director, Michelle Hernandez, has been selected to serve as a member of the California Department of Education's Food Distribution Program. It's FDP's Collaboration Committee. This committee provides an opportunity for USDA food program participants to offer critical feedback on policies, procedures, and related matters, as well as to discuss critical issues to the program's success. And then the last item is Measure U update. The Geological Hazards Report for Aliso TK and K building project will be submitted to the California Geological Survey after new soil borings have been obtained. And then DSA is currently reviewing our project submission for the Aliso TK and K building. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Really excited for our teachers who were selected as Carpinteria Teachers of the Year. Ms. Poulin and Mr. Morella as both excellent teachers, and it's just really exciting for them, for the community to recognize them. So, yeah. Okay. We are going to move on to F, Business Operations and Facilities. If you'd like to make public comment on anything under F, now is the time. Please step up to the podium and make your public comment.
Okay, union leadership will comment on the projected budget at another time. In regard to the quality and comprehensive nature of the transportation plan, the lack of transparency is palpable. Although the plan provides a nice plug for the community of Carpinteria, it fails to address many of the routine details contained in such plans. In other words, it's thick on feel-good and thin on substance. For comparison, SBUSD's plan covers the following subjects: the mandate on page 3, the overview on page 4, transportation board policies on page 5 and 6, transportation routes and services on page 7, prioritization of transportation for grades TK through 6, page 9, transportation for services for grades 7 through 12, page 10, no cost transportation services for pupils in grades 7 through 12, page 10, transportation offered to homeless pupils and foster youth, page 11, transportation services offered to pupils with disabilities, page 12, transportation services other than homeschool, page 14, transportation funding and finances, page 15, and an appendix to clarify stakeholder consultations in page 16. However, CUSD's transportation plan contains just a page and a half of narrative overview in 16-point font and a single page of expenses. It is utterly lacking in detail and fails to provide any data on the fiscal offsets to the budgetary expenditures associated with transportation, such as reimbursements, donations, gifts, and grants. Once again, CUSD highlights expenditures while minimizing revenues to serve CUSD's strategic fiscal narrative that the sky is falling over Carpinteria Unified School District when it comes to finances, and there's no money to fairly and productively compensate district teachers and support staff. There is only money to provide all administrators 2 salary increases in the same 21-month period the teachers and support staff have received none. Similarly, unlike the process in all other school districts regionally, there was no collaboration or consultation with district employees or their representatives on the plan itself. Perhaps this is why the plan does so little to truly inform the community on the topic of CUSD's transportation services. Lastly, union leadership wants to recognize the amazing commitment the transportation team, our classified workers, recently showed to our athletes. This past weekend, when one of our buses broke down while returning from Pismo, the transportation team swung into action and delivered a prompt response, yet another example of how a unionized and committed workforce makes themselves available even during duty-free hours to care for our students. Thank you.
Any further public comment for items under F, Business Operations and Facilities? Okay, seeing none, we will move to F1, Warrants. The board is asked to approve the warrants for the period of February 21st, 2025 through March 6th, 2025 in the amount of $502,972.77. Warrants are issued once a week on Thursdays. The report format shows check number, check date, payee, brief account description, payment comment, and check amount. Any questions from the board on the warrants? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the warrants.
I'll second that.
Discussion from the board? None? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. F2, Gifts, Grants, and Donations. We are being asked to accept a grant from SBCEO, Teachers Network, TeachNet Technology of $1,000 to ELISO teacher Amber Neely. Any questions from the board? Motion to approve?
I move to approve the warrants? No, the grant, sorry.
So I have a motion to approve F2A, grant from SBCEO.
I'll second that.
A second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
F3, our CUSD transportation plan. The board is asked to approve the Carpinteria Unified School District 24-25 transportation plan under a new state law, California Education Code, Section 398001, 00.1, requires that school districts develop a transportation services plan. The transportation plan is an outline of CUSD transportation services. The plan outlines the district transportation baseline of services. The Board of Education must adopt the plan by April 1st of each year. $157,658 in general fund apportionment is tied to the plan. Any questions from the board here?
Have we seen anything change significantly since last year?
Less apportionment, less funds, but other than that, no. We only transport special ed students home to school, unlike other districts.
Thank you.
Okay. May I get a motion to approve the 24-25 transportation plan?
I move to approve the 24-25 CUSD transportation plan.
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
F4, we have our second interim report presentation, and it is up for a vote. The board is asked to approve the 24-25 second interim report. AB 1200 requires that budget and financial data are reported at periodic intervals throughout the year. AB 2756 requires the superintendent and chief business officer to certify that the district will meet its financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent years. Jason Caff will provide a PowerPoint presentation and review attached documents. Jason?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, tonight we'll be going over the second interim report for the 24-25 year. I always think it's helpful just to basically go over some of the basics that are involved in a second interim. So on this first page here, about halfway down inside of that box there, it's indicated second interim report. So now, what's important about the second interim is that the second interim goes from July 1st through January 31st, as far as actuals are concerned. So as far as actual revenues and actual expenses, those are only reflected in the second interim report if they fell within that time window. So for example, if we have additional revenues that come in or additional expenditures that come, for example, let's say in April, those are not going to be in here because this is only capturing this time period between July 1st and January 31st. On the next slide, we go over the AB 1200 certification criteria. And so for our second interim, we are looking at a positive certification. And now what that means is that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for this year and the 2 subsequent years. So what that means is we'll be able to meet our obligations for 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27. And that is very important because all public school districts strive to maintain positive certification through every interim and also budget certification. Now, in this slide here, we are also looking once again at AB 1200, and we've probably all seen this slide before, but I like to go over it because it's very important. Because our ADA falls within 1,001 and 30,000, we are required by the state to maintain a 3% reserve requirement. If we fall below that, then basically we might go from positive to qualified, which is not someplace that we want to be, so we always strive to maintain that 3% reserve requirement. Now, this slide here is basically the same slide that we saw during first interim. And the reason it's the same is because we have not received any new property tax projections from either the Santa Barbara County Tax Assessor's Office or also SBCEO. So this slide here basically is identical to the one that we looked at first interim once again, because there have been no changes to the property tax projections at this point. So I'd like to point out for 24-25, and once again, we are estimating basically a 5% property tax increase versus the 7% that we're looking at during, or at least at budget adoption. So once again, those have been brought down to what is basically a more realistic property tax increase based on the best information that we've received from the county office. So for 24-25, we are looking at about a $1.5 million property tax increase. And I'd like to point out that that number right there is basically the number that was given to us by the Santa Barbara County Office of Education. So SPCEO basically said, Carpinteria Unified, here's the number you need to use for your 24-25 year. And so we are using that information in our 24-25 projections. Now, as far as 25-26 and 26-27 is concerned, the 2 out years, we don't receive any projections on those. So what we're doing is we're trying to be conservative, and we're saying, okay, well, based on this year and based on what we heard from the gentleman a couple of meetings ago regarding property taxes, we are basically going to project that our property taxes will come in at about 5% more each year. Now, once again, I'd like to state that that is not a guarantee. You know, nobody can guarantee what those numbers will actually be, because to do that would require a crystal ball, and nobody has one. So, but nonetheless, we are required to project into the future what our increases might be. And given our previous history from 1920 through 21-22, of 5% increase seems reasonable. And so that's what we're using for 25-26 and 26-27. So I think it's important that I just wanted to go over that with the board so they know where these property tax projections are coming from. Now, on this slide here, we're looking at the total general fund, and we're just looking at different variances in revenue from first interim, which was from July 1st through October 31st, to second interim, which once again is from July 1st through January 31st. So you'll see that, first of all, as far as state aid, there really have not been any changes to that. Once again, because there have been no changes to our property tax estimates for this year. So that's the reason that we're not seeing any variance in that line. Secondly, as far as federal revenue is concerned, we're not seeing any significant changes there, and so we're not seeing any variance in that line either. In the third line down, entitled Other State Revenues, we're seeing a variance of $62,983. And in the line below that, we're seeing local revenues, which have increased by approximately $436,000. Now, the explanations for those variances are in the orange box below. So to address the first one, the variance is in the other state revenues is basically due to a restricted K-16 grant that we were recently allocated. And so once we get those revenues, we will include those in the budget. And so what that $62,000 is basically because we got an adjustment to our K-16 grant. And once again, I'd like to highlight that the K-16 grant is a grant at the high school, and those funds are restricted. And basically that means that they can only be spent on certain things that the grant will allow. Next is the local revenues. Now, that $436,000 variance basically composes 2 main components. One, in that line are some additional grants, and the first one that we received is called a capacity grant. I believe that grant was for about $90,000. Once again, that is restricted revenue, which means that it can only be spent on items that are identified in that grant itself. We also received an allocation for First 5 and an allocation from SBCEO. And with regards to the SBCEO allocation, basically what will happen is that SBCEO will basically give us money, and then we will turn around and use those for teacher stipends. So that's what picks up about $182,500. And then below that, you'll see another line for donations. As the board probably will recall, over the past few months, we've seen quite a few donations. And so when we get those donations, those donations actually are tracked in this line right here. They're tracked in the local revenue line, and they're also tracked on the restricted side of the general fund. And the reason that you probably didn't see these in first interim is because we did not receive them until after October 31st. Because once again, first interim only picks up actual activities from July 1st through October 31st. So anything that happened after October 31st, as far as actuals are concerned, is not in first interim, because once again, first interim is just that snapshot in time. And now second interim, since it goes from July 1st through January 31st, it's picking all those donations up. And so that's the reason that the board is seeing this increase here as far as donations are concerned. So inside this donation line, we have donations from CEF, there were donations to CHS, CMS, and Canalino. And so those came to about $254,000. So when we net all those out, we're looking at almost 500,000, $499,000 of increased revenues. But once again, I want to point out that in large, all of those revenues came in through restricted resources, which means once again they can only be spent on the things that are identified in those specific grants or in the donations. So that's the variance as far as the revenues were concerned. On this next slide here, we are looking at the total change in expenditures from first interim to second. Now here, it's a little bit more involved. You'll see that as far as basically starting at the top, for certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits, down in the box below where I kind of go over the changes, I've netted all those out because inside of those lines, there are hundreds of lines that roll up into certificated salaries, and there's hundreds of lines that roll up into classified, and there's hundreds of lines that roll up into the benefits. So I collapsed all those and I addressed it down in the box below. So as far as the certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits, those variances are largely due to salary and benefit changes and an increase in subcosts. I think for subcosts at the beginning of the year, I think we started off with a budget of about $260,000 for certificated subcosts. As of today, when I checked, our subcosts were about $245,000. So obviously the $260 was not going to last us the remainder of the year. So I needed to put some more money into certificated subcosts that will take us through the end of the school year. So that's that first line. For materials and supply changes, we have a slight decrease there of $37,400. For budgeting for donations and other restricted resources and grants. So basically, if we add the $358,000 there and the $118,000, that totals the $476,000 variance that we're seeing in services and other operating. And so basically, what's happening there is when we receive the donations, we are booking revenue, which we're seeing on the local revenue side, but we're also establishing a budget for that. And so this is where the board is seeing us establishing a budget for the donations that came in, and also the increases in restricted resources and the new restricted resources that we got just recently. So that's why we're seeing that increase in services and other operating. And then below that, we have some minor changes to capital outlay, $1,500, and debt expense, a slight decrease of about $8,700. So that total budget variance totals about $545,000. So what that means is from first interim to second interim, our total general fund expenditures have increased by about $545,000. But when you step back and look at it, it's really not that significant of a change because we had significant revenues coming in from donations, and we had significant revenues coming in from new grants. And once again, I'd like to point out that basically, for the most part, any new expenditures are occurring on the restricted side of the general fund. So that's where the $545,000 budget variance comes from. So if we go to the next slide, once again, here we have the total general fund, and we're comparing in the first column what the budget looked like at first interim, and the second identifies what the budget looks like now at second interim. And off to the right there, you'll see the variances that we just reviewed in the prior two slides. But I'd like to just go down as far as first interim is concerned. We were projecting total revenues of about $40 million. We have total expenses of about $40.5 million. We have a transfers out of $100,000. That is a transfer out from the general fund to deferred maintenance fund. So that's what that represents. So at first interim, we were looking at a decrease in the total general fund of approximately $396,000. And then we have our beginning fund balance and our ending fund balance of $3.8 million. And going to the very bottom, so at first interim, our reserve was projected at 4.31%. Once again, that's first interim. I just want to go over this for comparison purposes. And at second interim, if we go over and just look at the total revenues, now we're projecting total revenues of about $40.7 million. And once again, that additional $500,000 is largely due to restricted grants and donations. So that's why we're seeing an increase there. If we go down to total expenses at second interim, we're projecting about $41.1 million. We're still seeing that $100,000 transfer out, which once again is a transfer out to the deferred maintenance fund. And for the decrease to fund balance, which has changed, we're now looking at a decrease to the fund balance, total general fund balance of about $442,000, which once again, when we compare that figure to what we were at first interim, the difference is largely about $45,000. So for a district with a budget of $40 million, a variance of $45,000 isn't that significant when you look at the entire general fund budget. So at second interim, if we keep going down, we're projecting our ending fund balance to be about $3.8 million. And inside that 3.8 are a couple different things. So inside that $3.8 million sits the restricted fund balance, which we're projecting at about $2 million. That's at $2,050,500 or $181 you're seeing there. And then also inside that 3.8 is the unrestricted fund balance. And so that's the $1.7 million that you're seeing right there. Now, inside that 1.7 actually sits our 3% reserve. So what we're projecting at second interim is that our reserve is 1.2 million. Once again, we need to have at least 1.2 million showing on the budget to maintain a positive certification, which we have that because we're projecting 1.7 million. So at the very tail end there, you'll see the reserves. We're projecting our reserves now at second interim at 4.29%. So on this next slide here, we have, once again, the general fund, but it's broken out between its two main components, which are the unrestricted side, which is represented in the first column on the left, and in the middle is the restricted side of the general fund, and the far right is the total general fund, which is both components added together. So just running quickly down the unrestricted side, for unrestricted total revenues, we're projecting about $34 million. We have total expenditures we're projecting at about $25.9 million. And then other sources and uses, you'll see there are contributions to restricted programs, and that's $7.9 million. So once again, what that is that $7.9 million from the unrestricted side that is going to the restricted side to cover programs that need basically to be, have some contributions in order to maintain them. Once again, I know we've talked about this before, but inside that $7 million is the contribution to special ed, which at second interim is sitting at about $6.4 million. So that $6.4 million to special ed is sitting inside of that 7.9. So we have the 7.9 contribution. So we're seeing a slight excess of revenues over expenses of about $168,000. Then we have our beginning fund balance, and once again, we have our ending fund balance of $1.7 million. And below that, you'll see kind of what I reviewed on the prior slide, but inside that $1.7 million is our 3% reserve, which is the $1.2 million you're seeing there, plus the undesignated fund balance of $533,000. So basically, what that means as far as our reserve is, we are meeting our 3% reserve, but we are only meeting it slightly more than required. And I say slightly because for a district our size, $533,000 isn't a lot of wiggle room should something significant happen. So we're required to have a $1.2 million in order to maintain positive certification, but right now we have 1.7, so we have $533,000 basically to work with on the unrestricted side of the general fund. Now I'm switching over to the middle column, which is the restricted. And so as far as total revenues are concerned, we're projecting revenues on the restricted side of $6.7 million. However, you'll note that our expenditures greatly exceed our revenues on the restricted side. On the restricted side, we are projecting expenditures of approximately $15.1 million. And right below that, you'll see the transfer in. So that's, once again, that's the transfer from the unrestricted side to restricted to deferred maintenance. And then you'll see that $7.9 million once again. And so when you see that $7.9 million in both columns, so what that means, once again, is that money's coming out of the unrestricted side, 7.9 is coming out of the unrestricted side, and it's being put in the restricted side to cover certain programs. And so that's the reason that the number is the same. So on the restricted side, we're seeing a deficiency of revenues over expenses of about $610,000. Then we have our ending fund balance that we're projecting to come in at around $2 million. And so at the end of the year, we're projecting our restricted fund balance will be basically $2 million. So the third column over is the total general fund, which once again is both of these added together. So in total, we're projecting about $40.7 million of revenues, $41.1 in expenses. We have that $100,000 once again, which is going to the deferred maintenance fund. We're seeing a deficiency of revenues over expenses of about $442,000, which we do the math. Once again, it brings us down to a total general fund balance of about $3.8 million. But once again, that's composed of $2 million of restricted funds and 1.2 of our reserve and about $500,000 in addition. And so once again, we're looking at about a 4.29% reserve given our 24-25 second interim budget that we have before us this evening. Now, the last but very important part of the second interim and first interim and budget and basically all of the district's finances is the multi-year projection. So once again, all school districts are required to do this, given the best information they have, because it's important that we project our revenues out and our expenses just to see where we are going financially. With regards to the 24-25 column, so once again, this is at second interim, so it's picking up all the expenditures and revenues that we just went over in the prior few slides. But if we go down to the green section there where it says unrestricted, undesignated fund balance, so that $533,000, that's what we have above our required 3% reserve. And so for this year, once again, we're looking at about a 4.29 reserve. For the 2 years that we have to project out, I want to reiterate the point that, just like I said at the very beginning, we are using the financial projections that we were given by SBCEO for the 24-25 year. For the 2 out years, we don't receive any projections for those, so we have to project based on what we have seen historically and what's reasonable. And given our history and what we're seeing this year, we have factored in 5% increases in property taxes for both 25-26 and 26-27. Now, I do want to point out that even though we're factoring those 5% increases in, that does not mean that those funds are guaranteed. These are just projections, which all school districts must do in their multi-year projection. Will these change? Most likely, they will change. But once again, we are required to use the best information that we have when we do these types of projections. So in 25-26, we're seeing slightly more revenue than expenditures, about $316,000. We are looking at our unrestricted, undesignated fund balance of about $1.3 million, which in 25-26 would bring us to about a 6.09% reserve. And 26-27, once again, that's been adjusted for 5%. And I should have added too that I've also factored in step and column increases in here as well, because those types of cost increases happen automatically just by virtue of people moving to the right or down on the salary schedule. So those have all been factored in. So 26-27, we are seeing an excess of revenues of expenditures of about $982,000. And if we go down to the highlighted green section, our unrestricted, undesignated fund balance, we're projecting a fund balance of about $2.8 million, which would bring our reserve balance to approximately 9.7%. However, I do want to throw the standard caveat out here. once again, is that these are projections, but basically we are working with the information, the best information we have at this time. And also, it's important to note that, once again, these do not include any cost increases for 23-24 negotiations, since those are still currently unsettled. Once those are settled, these will look different, because we'll have to factor in the additional costs, and those will be reflected. So once we settle, these projections will look different. But at this point, this is the way it looks as far as our second interim. So that basically concludes my second interim presentation. I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to kick it off.
Just a couple. So, can you give me an example of a restricted certificate salary expenditure?
That would be basically, let's say, for example, a teacher that is charged to Title I. So
Okay.
Title I is a federal revenue, but Title I is also restricted. So tracking those revenues and expenditures is on the restricted side.
Okay.
And that teacher can only do basically certain things because they're funded by Title I.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Any further? Feel free to just go through with whatever you got. Just go for it.
So the elephant in the room, so to speak, is as far as negotiating salaries, we're looking at $533,000 roughly.
Yes, that $533,000 is the amount that's above our 3% reserve.
Right.
Yes.
That's what we have left over at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
at this point in our budgeting
Yes.
cycle.
And once again, I'd like to just go over the fact that this is second interim, and even though we're in March, this is basically picking up the budget through, and actuals, through January 31st.
Right. Okay.
So we still have a few months to go. In a couple months, parts of this may look different. But once again, what happens as situations change, we will, we try and revise the budget to make it as realistic as possible.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else before I go? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Okay. I really appreciated you making it clear what the gifts and grants, donations and grants, how that plays in, where it goes in, how it goes into restricted. They are for specific items.
Correct.
It's designated that way, so it does not go into the general fund. It is restricted and not available for use for other general fund applicable things. They're very specific in scope which they can be used for.
Yes.
But I appreciate how you broke that out and made it clear.
Appreciate
Thank you. That's been something I've heard requested. So, let's see here. And then also making it clear how that plays in on page 7, how that plays into budgeting, how the increase in revenue matches with the expenditure.
Yes.
Making that very clear. So thank you. And then also, just reiterating, because if you were to just glance down on, say, page 8, down at the bottom where it's restricted, unrestricted, 3% reserve, I appreciate you noting that 3% reserve number is not added in that, like, those three numbers aren't being added together into a whole number. It's the first two, the restricted plus the unrestricted. The 3% reserve is within that unrestricted.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think there are members of the public, who might look down that and add all three of those numbers up, thinking that that's the pot.
Right.
But that 1.236364 is from that 1.769. So thank you for clarifying that. Let's see.
I'm sorry, while we're on that page, I meant to say thank you very much for these numbers. A variance of roughly $46,000 is incredible. That's it gives us a lot of confidence to make decisions, think about the budgeting process going forward, and,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Agreed. Okay, and then on page last, what is that, page 10? So you were very clear, this does not include any increase for salary increases, but you did include going out step and column increases.
I did, yes.
So thank you for explaining that is factored in here. But I feel like we need to explain that it's more than just 23, 24. We're gonna be working within essentially either this fiscal year or the next fiscal year. It'll be 24, 25 as well, and then whatever happens going forward. So we bring this up every time, but it's so frustrating that we have to say there's this projected reserve balance that's super inflated when that's not at all reflective of actual expenses that are going to happen. But because we know they're coming, we don't know what they are. It's very difficult. So it's an exercise that the state makes us do. It really doesn't, as far as projecting out the reserve balance before things are settled. It's just it's a difficult thing, but that's where we're at. Okay, I'm trying to think. Yeah, thank you for really tightening this up. I appreciate the clarity in a lot of the lines. So, yeah. Just noting that from first to second, yeah, it's not really far off. And yeah, it was a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason.
So this is an
Clear.
action item. We're being asked to approve the second interim report. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve the second interim report.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
And
Thank you,
any
Jason.
further discussion?
No, thank you for clarifying all those points. That was your thing.
Thank
Very
you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to F5, Resolution 25-936, authorizing the borrowing of funds for fiscal year 2025 through 26 and the issuance of sale of tax and revenue anticipation notes and participation in the California Cash Reserve Program. Board is asked to adopt Resolution 25-936. By passing the resolution before the board, our district will have the opportunity to participate in the California School Cash Reserve Program sponsored by California School Board Association Finance Corporation. The program consistently issues trans for more than half of all California school districts, community college districts, and county offices of education that issue trans. Through participation in the Cash Reserve Program, our district will be able to issue a tax and revenue anticipation note as part of this cost-effective pooled structure. Any questions from the board?
I'd just like to remind you that every spring at this time, we ask you to vote on a resolution for the trans because it's a cash flow in terms of we don't get our revenue from the county. So that this is an annual vote.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I was going to jump in with the same, because we get our money essentially twice a year.
Property tax.
From our property tax revenue twice a year. This helps bridge that time, which is usually around now-ish. And before we get our second installment. And so this is not an emergency loan. I've heard it described before. This is a very normal procedure, as it states. More than half of all California school districts, community college districts, and county offices of education utilize this tool that's available to them. So may I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and it's a resolution, so that's a roll call. Eric?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
And I am aye. Okay. G, Measure U. We will now take public comment for any items under G, Measure U at this time. Please feel free to step up to the podium. Okay, seeing none. G1, renewal of audit services contract with Christy White, Certified Public Accountant for Measure U, 2425, 2526, and 2627. Board is asked to approve the renewal of Christy White Certified Public Accountants for Measure U. The district's 2-year contract with Christy White Certified Public Accountants for Measure U audit services also ended at the conclusion of the 23-24 audit. The district would like to enter into a contract for audit services for the fiscal years ending in June 30th, 2025, 26, and 27. The audit fees for each year are as follows: $4,500 for 24-25, $4,700 for 25-26, and $4,900 for 26-27, and will be paid with Measure U bond funds. I did ask a question about, or I'd like to ask a question. I apologize. Because we have come out of a contract and gone into a contract, just to clarify that this is pricing comparable to services, and I believe the County Office of Education stated for these types of services with the CPAs, this is the rates that we have here as well as elsewhere are typical for the services for our size district. Thank you. Any further questions from the board on this? No? Okay. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the renewal of the audit services with Christy White.
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. G2, approval of addendum report, geologic hazards investigation from Campbell Geo Inc., Aliso. We are being asked to approve the proposal, geologic hazards investigation for the Aliso Elementary Kindergarten building. At the February 13 meeting, the board approved Campbell Geo to perform soil analysis and prepare a geologic hazards report for the Aliso Elementary Kindergarten project. California Geological Survey, CGS, reviewed the submitted report but did not accept the locations of the soil borings. So new soil borings have been obtained, and Campbell Geo needs to write an addendum to the original report, which will then be resubmitted to the California Geological Survey. Campbell Geo estimates the work to prepare this addendum will be $6,500 for geotechnical investigation services and will be paid with Measure U bond funds. Questions from the board? Okay, I will just ask and flag that. So let's see here. CGS, or sorry, maybe I'm getting this confused. Was it Campbell Geo? No, CGS identified the original boring sites.
Right. Yes.
And Campbell Geo did the borings.
Yes.
CGS then said, we want other sites.
Yes.
And so now
We
we
have
are
to do
going,
additional
we have to do
sites.
additional sites.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that
Mm-hmm.
correct. Okay. No further questions? May I get a motion to approve G2?
I'll move to approve G2.
All second.
Okay, all in discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to H, personnel. We will now take public comment on H, personnel. If you'd like to make public comment, please step up to the podium at this time.
Once again, CUSD suffers the resignation of another talented and dedicated special education instructional assistant. Heidi Medell's resignation will be a great loss to Aliso. Similarly, we recognize the service of John McClure, who is set to retire in September of 2025. We want both to know that we continue to do all we can to ensure that they are included in any contract agreement that covers the period they provided service to CUSD. The rest of the union's remarks are focused on resolution number 25937, which seeks board approval for the release, non-reelection of a probationary certificated administrator. The district has not announced the name of or job placement of this administrator, but an employee number has been provided, number 1617. The union has reached out to several administrators who are still in their probationary period. Our intent is to provide them a heads up for this pending approval by the school board if they are not already aware. Thus far, we believe the following school sites could be directly impacted by this release: the middle school, the high school, Aliso, Catalino, and SPED departments across the district. We hope that the school board is provided sufficient information to determine the impact on the system before making this cut. For example, cutting a third administrator at the high school will have a very different impact than cutting a SPED director position or the only middle school vice principal. Again, we don't know who this person is yet. And releasing individual 1617 should not be the end of the board's considerations. For example, does the district intend to hire a qualified employee to replace number 1617? Or will both number 1617 and their current position be cut? What justification is being provided for this release? And in light of poor student achievement data contained in the LCAP, how will this impact student learning? What is the anticipated impact to the teaching and learning environment? We hope you're asking these questions. We haven't heard any of them from you, certainly. Senior admin has been peddling a myth that employees and their elected leaders are antagonistic to district administrators, and that is simply not correct. Employees understand that talented administrators provide critical support to both educators and support staff. We make every effort to work collaboratively with these administrators. Of course, there are a select few who are all too willing to do the bad faith bidding of Superintendent Rigby and the school board. But those individuals are not the majority, and we are unwilling to paint all of our administrative colleagues with the same brush. So we remind whomever Administrator 1617 may be that they are entitled to employment rights of their own, a common one being the right to return to the classroom and continue working with district students and families, just as, for example, Dr. Coletti chose to do several years ago. Employee leadership remains a resource for employee 1617 and any of our well-intended administrative colleagues. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none. May I ask a question? Are employees notified about this?
As we've discussed earlier, all employees are notified well in advance of any decisions that are made in terms of non-reelects. So it's never a surprise for anyone.
So it's already been communicated.
Clearly, weeks ago.
Thank you.
Shows up on the board agenda. Yeah. Right.
Everyone knows that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a real resolution I need to read out.
Yep.
Correct? Okay. Resolution 25-937.
First and second on personnel?
Oh, and number one. We haven't done number one. It was just a comment for number two.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So,
I move to approve the personnel summary.
hang on, I haven't read the agenda item yet. That was just public comment, and I
Okay.
was addressing the
Sorry.
question, and it threw me. No, that's okay. Okay, so H1, personnel summary. The board is asked to approve the following recommended personnel items: resignation 1, retirement 1, spring coaching assignments 2 personnel. Any questions from the board here? Okay, may I get a motion to approve?
I will move to recommend the personnel summary.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the personnel summary, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and H2 is our resolution. Resolution number 25-937, non-reelect a certificated probationary employee, public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. Board is asked to approve the resolution 25-937, non-reelect a certificated probationary employee, public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. And I will now read the resolution. Resolution number 25-937, whereas Education Code Section 44951 authorizes the governing board to release a certificated employee from an administrative position at the end of the current school year if written notice is provided to the employee on or before March 15th that he or she may be released and or reassigned from his or her position for the following school year. And whereas Education Code Section 44929.21 authorizes the governing board to not reelect a probationary employee to a position requiring certification qualifications for the next succeeding school year if the governing board gives notice to the employee on or before March 15th of the employee's second complete consecutive school year of employment of its decision to not reemploy the employee. And whereas the employee identified in Exhibit A hereto as our probationary employees currently employed by the district in administrative positions requiring certification qualifications. And whereas the district's governing board has determined that it is necessary to release from their administrative positions and non-reelect the employees identified in Exhibit A at the conclusion of the 24-25 school year. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing board of the Carpinteria Unified School District that A, the employee identified in Exhibit A shall be released and non-reelected from their current administrative positions at the conclusion of the 24-25 school year. B, the superintendent or designee is authorized and directed to give written notice of this decision, along with a copy of this resolution, to each affected employee on or before March 15, 2025. Notice shall be given in accordance with the provisions of Education Code Sections 44951 and 44929.21. I will now take a roll call. Or actually, no, it's a roll call, yeah? Yeah. Eric?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
And I am aye. Passed and adopted at a regular meeting of the governing board of the Carpinteria Unified School District this 11th day of March 2025 by the following vote: 4 ayes, no noes, no abstentions, and no one absent. So 1 absent, and then the 4 ayes. Let's see here. Okay, and that's that for employee 1617. Okay, moving on to I, future agenda items. Public comment on I.
Okay, so employee leadership again asked that the concept of a contingency formula used to resolve our fiscal disagreements be placed on an upcoming board agenda. This evening, the district provided another round of strategic projections, which unsurprisingly further underestimated revenues and overestimated expenditures, a common negotiation tactic for CUSD. Overestimating expenditures unnecessarily, CUSD's budget projections maintain over $1 million in legal fees for the next 3 years, reducing CUSD's reserve balances. And then underestimating revenues, CUSD's budget projections also remove $4.5 million from the district's property tax revenue projections over the next 3 years, further driving down reserve balances. CUSD states that simply following the county's projections, which are an average of all cities and towns in Santa Barbara County, thus failing to acknowledge that Carpinteria routinely receives property taxes well above the county average. But until the actual revenue comes in, district officials will have us believe that Carpinteria's property tax revenues will be proportional to those of Santa Maria, Guadalupe, Orcutt, and Lompoc. These two actions alone on paper remove a total of $7.5 million from the district's reserve balances, $7.5 million less to work with when making critical decisions impacting district students, employees, families, and the community. For comparison, that's $7.5 million not invested in valuable programs that offer students and families a variety of choice. Programs like the Family School or the GATE program or intramural sports at the junior high or more robust transportation services. That $7.5 million is equivalent to 37.5% in salary increases for all teachers and support staff. While employees recently asked for a total of 3 to 4% salary increases over a 2-year period and have been rejected. That $7.5 million district officials allege are not available for the purpose of relieving economic instability associated with cost of living increases, which have increased approximately 20 to 23% regionally in the last 2 years. And that $7.5 million district officials allege are not available to resolve impasse, fairly compensate employees, and avoid the potential dysfunction of a general strike. Rather than argue over the accuracy of the district's projected revenues, employees are willing to accept them at this time, as long as a contingency formula is put in place to ensure the equitable distribution of future property tax revenues if and when they come in higher than the district's hyper-conservative projections. It's entirely reasonable. Such a contingency formula would address whatever fiscal outcomes come our way and allow the bargaining partners to reach an agreement that places the district's employees and the district on the same side of the
Thank you.
table.
Your time is
rowing
up.
together
Your
in the
time
same
is up.
direction.
Thank
Just
you.
imagine winning
Stop. Your
and
time
losing
is up.
together. Thank you.
Stop.
Thank you, Rogelio Delgado, a Carpinteria resident. Proposed budget. I don't know, but things might look good, but might not. Because with real estate, nobody knows. No one, not even the experts, no one. Projections are that, projections. The facts are that first interim report, 4.3. Second interim report, 4.29. Yes, barely above the 3% minimum, barely. Real estate is complicated. Otherwise, if we were to know what's going to happen, we would be all millionaires, or not, or we will lose everything just during the financial crisis. We remember that. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. Budget projections for 2025, 2026, 6.9, 2026, 2027, 7%. Maybe not. Remember, Diana, when it first came in, 2017, 2018, reserves were better. There was a different market back then, the Trump administration. Interest was low, 3.5%. Properties were, the value of properties were low. Now it's just the other way around. So we don't know. Anything could happen. So what I want to express is this. We trust you as taxpayers, this budget. Take good care of it. Take good care. Thank you.
Okay. So on future agenda items, we have the 25-26 proposed budget, the 25-26 LCAP, DLI program, and CHS-CTE programs will all be on upcoming agendas. Board calendar, nothing to note at this time, and we are now on to board announcements. If anybody has anything they want to bring up.
I was just thinking that been to several, there's been a lot of events this last month. And I want to congratulate Girls Inc. and a couple of other events are coming up, but including the Boys and Girls Club and the Children's Project. But people are generously supporting these facilities, and our schools are getting the product of those facilities. So I want to thank them for doing such a good job, but the public for continuing to donate to them. It's quite amazing what's being raised.
And I believe that continues on with the Boys and Girls Club
Right,
event
Boys and Girls Club is on Saturday.
on Saturday. Very excited for that. That'll be a great evening. I just want to note that there is a STEM night coming up at Canalino. And I also want to bring up something that was brought up earlier in open comment about support for our community as a whole, but especially our Hispanic community, and pointing out that there have been events, quite a few over the last couple months, and the district has been putting out parent square notices with the information. And so I would just really encourage people who are concerned to pay attention to Parent Square, or if you aren't able to get it, go into your school office and they can share that information with you. There is another event coming up, community. It's open to the public. It's not a school event, but the district has put out information on March 14th called Empower and Protect. I don't want to get too much into the details of it, but other than our district and our community is coming together to take care of one another, and I am incredibly grateful to be part of such a supportive community. So thank you to all those that are ensuring these types of programs are happening. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you. Good evening.